So during the Easter season, we get a lot of, in our first reading from the Acts of the Apostles. I like to preach on that, only because this is the only time of year that we ever get the Acts of the Apostles. The gospel today was from John chapter 3. We already looked at that on the fourth Sunday of Lent, and it's going to continue through that. But like I said, a lot of these daily mass homilies is going to be a reflection on the Acts of the Apostles. First of all, to know that this work, that of the Acts of the Apostles, is a work of the gospel writer Luke. Okay, in fact, he really considers the Acts of the Apostles to be part 2 of his gospel, a continuation. Okay, the main overall arching theme of the Acts of the Apostles is that the ministry and presence of Jesus continues here. Okay, that Jesus is not a distant figure, but that his ministry, his personhood, and his power continues on today. How does it continue? Through the Acts of the Apostles. Okay, hence the name. Okay, the actions of the apostles will continue to make the presence of Christ to each of the individual believers. Okay, so I will point out as we catch it, as Luke shows this, I will make sure and make an effort to show how some of the actions of the apostles are very similar to the actions of Jesus has written in the Gospel of Luke. This first reading today is not one of those examples. Instead, today's first reading, which again Acts of the Apostles does, is that they show what the post-resurrection believer looks like. Okay, so Christ is risen, Christ is ascended, the Holy Spirit came. What does the post-resurrection Christian look like? Okay, and it begins in chapter 4, which is where we're at now, that the community of believers was of one of mind and heart, that no one claimed any of his possessions as his own. Okay. So going back to that very familiar expression, my house is your house. You have a relative come in and they're in your house and you tell them, what's mine is yours. It's a very Christian saying, okay? And notice that this is not an obligation that was imposed onto the believers. This was a free choice. This is how the people chose to live. As if everything that they owned, it wasn't just their own. It wasn't theirs to seize and to have as themselves, but it was to be open. Their gifts were meant to be open to their other fellow believer. And then later on it says that some even sold their houses and stuff, and again, by their own free choice, not a divine mandate. By their own free choice and generosity of entering into the one in mind and heart of the believer, but also entering into the one in mind and heart of Christ, to bestow their gifts at the feet of the church, at the apostles. Again, to give to those in need. Okay, and that's the mind and attitude of Jesus. Pure gift. Everything that he has, he wants to bestow upon us. And then finally, we're introduced to a very important figure that is going to be very prominent throughout the Acts of the Apostles, that of Barnabas, which is translated son of encouragement. Now, this is interesting, okay? St. Luke tells us that he's a Levite, okay, and that he sold a piece of his property that he owned and then put it at the feet of the apostles. Why is that significant? It's almost like St. Luke is just repeating what he just said, but why repeat it? Well, here's why. The key is that Barnabas is a Levite. If you know your Old Testament, the portions of the land of Israel were divided amongst really the 11 sons, okay, of Jacob, but notice that he had 12 sons, okay. One of the sons, okay, that of Levi, was the priest of the clan. They didn't own any land. Instead, the other tribes would give a portion of their land to the Levites, to the priests. But notice what's happening now. Levi, the priest of the Old Testament, Barnabas, who was a Levite, is now given his portion to the feet of the apostles, which means what? That the apostles are now the priest. Okay, the priest of the new covenant. A very subtle but very important distinction that as we continue through the Acts of the Apostles, we're going to see how difficult it is to break away from the old law and from the old rituals, the old forms of worship. They're going to have a tough time with that separation. Okay. But again, today, the theme of today is what? Is one of generosity and gift. Everything that we have, in one way we earned it, but in another way it's also a gift from God. When we take on not only the mind and heart of the Christian community, but the mind and heart of Jesus Christ, who is nothing but a pure gift to the other. May God bless you.